Tonight are 5 candidates who want to lead Calgary for the next 4 years. We'll be hearing about their plans through the night to tackle the biggest issues facing our dynamic, growing city. They are Brian Thiessen, Jeff Davison, Jyoti Gondek, Sonya and Jeromy Farkas. Yeah, keep the applause going, make some noise while I make my way over to my moderator's perch. Okay, here I sit in my moderator's table, and here's how tonight's debate is going to work. We have 4 main topics to dig into. They are public safety, growth, rezoning, and leadership. And within each of those, the candidates will first be given an opportunity to tell us about their plan to tackle these issues. We'll then get into an open debate format for 10 minutes. I'll ask questions and direct some of the traffic, but it's also a chance for the candidates to respond to each other's ideas. After that, we'll move into something a little different. We're going to give it over to the candidates, and they will each be given the opportunity to ask a question to one of their opponents. Okay. We'll also, time permitting, get to some of the questions that were pre-submitted by our CBC listeners and readers. Those, of course, inform the whole structure of the debate as well. Now, we know our audience is enthusiastic about this election, but we do want to kindly ask you to hold your applause to the end of the debate. You'll be given a chance to hoot and holler and clap as loud as you like later in the evening. But we have a lot to get to, and we want to keep things moving as best we can. Are you ready? Okay. Let us begin. We'll start with an opening statement from each candidate, and the question is, why should Calgarians vote for you? The order in which the candidates get to speak has been drawn at random by our editorial team. First up is Brian Thiessen, who is running with the Calgary Party. Why should Calgarians vote for you? You have a minute.
I love this city. It's where I built my career, met my wife, and raised my family. But Calgary's in trouble. For over a decade, we were ranked in the top 5 cities in the world. Now we're 18th and falling. That's not just a statistic, that's a warning sign. I'm running to build the kind of city where firefighters and teachers can live in the communities they serve and feel safe. I'm running to stand up to Danielle Smith as she defunds our police, raises our taxes, and defunds our transit system. But we need a hands-on, experienced leader, someone who's willing to roll up their sleeves and work with others to solve our problems. This election, you can vote for more of the same, or you can vote for me, Brian Thiessen. I have the experience, the plan, and I have the resolve to fight for Calgary.
Thank you very much. And our next candidate up is Jeff Davison. Your time starts now.
Well, thank you to CBC and the Red and White Club for hosting us. Ladies and gentlemen, this election is about dysfunction versus direction. Calgarians are tired of the chaos and division at City Hall. We need leadership that works, leadership that actually delivers results. I'm the only candidate who has a proven track record of bringing people together and getting things done. Whether it's securing major investment deals, supporting small business, or leading major healthcare initiatives, I've built partnerships that deliver real solutions. And now, I'm ready to do the same as your mayor. I'm the only one talking about a tax freeze because Calgarians need a break. We can hold the line on taxes and still maintain services. That's responsible leadership. I'll roll back the blanket rezoning and work with communities, not against them, to manage growth and make Calgary livable. And most importantly, we'll make our city safe again. Seniors should feel safe downtown, our young people safe on transit, and every family should feel safe in their own neighborhood. That's what direction looks like, a city that works, that listens, and that leads with competence. My name is Jeff Davison, and on October 20th, I'm asking for your support to help build the most affordable, safe city of opportunity for everyone. Thank you.
All right, over to you, Jyoti Gondek. Why should Calgarians vote for you?
Calgary's on the verge of its next great chapter. We've got the momentum, we've got the talent, and we've got the vision to be the most dynamic and livable city in this country. But you can't do that without strong and steady leadership. The kind of leadership that all of you have demonstrated over the years. Your contributions to community, to the economy, and to your families has helped to build a strong foundation for future generations. You inspire me, and I model my leadership after yours. Leadership that is rooted in service and investments in housing and transit and safety. Leadership that has made Calgary the best economy in the nation, and leadership that protects our values of collaboration, grit, and determination. I'm running for mayor because I believe in this city, and I believe that this city deserves someone who will stand up for Calgarians and make sure that we are represented well on every stage.
Thank you very much. Sonya Sharp is next with the Community's First Party. Sonya, you have 1 minute.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I don't have a personal or an ideological agenda in running for mayor. Instead, I have a to-do list, and my to-do list is very clear. 1, repeal blanket rezoning and bring neighborhood voices back to chambers. Number 2 is make our community safe again, hiring 500 new police officers, bringing that back up to the national average, and putting a police station downtown. I'm the only candidate up here endorsed by the Calgary Police Association, which represents 2,300 frontline officers. And bringing a strong focus back on good governance at City Hall. Right now at City Hall, senior administration is calling the shots, and that's not how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to report to council, and council reports to you, the citizen. To be frank, things need to change at City Hall, and that's the change I'm going to bring. Tonight, I'm offering you that choice, real change, and I am backed by a wonderful group of Communities First candidates that are ready to tackle that commitment. And I'm Sonya Sharp, and I'm ready to bring affordable, safe city that works and where you can trust City Hall again.
Thank you very much. Finally, we go to Jeromy Farkas. Why should Calgarians vote for you?
Thank you. My friends, we are at a crossroads. Calgary is about to welcome our 2 millionth neighbor, and that's a great test that could either break us or make us. Without a plan, that growth could overwhelm our housing, our infrastructure, and our services. But with a plan, it could strengthen our communities and secure Calgary's future for generations to come. But after 12 years of Jyoti Gondek and Sonya Sharp's inaction on City Council, Calgarians know it's time for a change. My plan, our path forward, lays out the concrete, practical steps that I'll take to make life safer and more affordable for your family, starting on this Monday. My name is Jeromy Farkas, and I need your vote for mayor to stop a political party takeover of City Council and get City Hall moving on your priorities. Together, let's choose a new path forward for our great city.
Thank you very much to all the candidates. Now, we are moving on to our first topic of the evening, public safety. Now, according to a poll commissioned by CBC Calgary, this issue, and in particular addressing public disorder in the downtown core, is top of mind for the majority of voters in this election. To begin each topic, the candidates will have 1 minute each to answer a question on the subject. That question, in this case, is what is your plan to ensure Calgarians feel safer, both in the downtown core and in communities across the city? Jeff Davison, you are up first. You have 1 minute.
Well, I would start by saying what we're doing isn't working. We've been on the campaign trail for over a year, and not one single Calgarian has told me they feel safer today than they did 4 years ago. The system's broken. Again, seniors don't feel safe downtown. Our young people do not feel safe on transit. Frankly, our transit drivers are being attacked on their job. This is not Calgary. This is not safe. So to my best recollection, the biggest challenge we have is that people work in silos here. And nobody's working together on finalizing a solution and figuring out how we put Calgarians first. So the idea would be bringing a task force forward. The idea of getting our federal government on board with us on bail reform so that the day we arrest criminals, they're not back out on the street the next day. Working with the province on mental health and addiction strategy, because let's face it, 90% of the problem downtown right now, and now we're seeing it in our own communities, is mental health and addiction. And then working locally with policing agencies as well as all of those community services for that wraparound care to make sure that when we pick up people, we don't make sure they're getting back into a system where they get trapped.
Thank you very much. Jyoti Gondek, you are next on this topic. Your time starts now.
The thing that I hear most commonly from Calgarians is their concern about open drug use downtown. And they are fearful to be in public spaces. They're worried about people being in positions of crisis. So I made a promise through my campaign that I would end open drug use. And I actually had the opportunity to bring that motion forward to council before we finished our term. And as a result of my leadership, we are strengthening our bylaw to prevent open drug use, and we are going to send those folks who need help to community court so they can get the supports they need for housing, addictions, and mental health support. That's a compassionate way to address a very real issue. We are also making sure that we are investing in integrated response from Calgary Police Service, as well as transit and peace officers and outreach teams. And the other component of public safety is making sure you've got a fire department that is fully funded to respond to emergency calls when they happen. That's a commitment I've made and I will continue to invest in.
Sonya Sharp, over to you. What is your plan to ensure Calgarians feel safer, both in the downtown core and in communities across the city?
Thank you. I want you all to imagine this. A young lady interviewed me a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about public safety, and she started crying in my office when I mentioned bringing a pledge forward for increased police officers and a police station downtown. She works at a bar on Stephen Avenue, and she said to me, "Councillor Sharp, I fear my life walking home to my car every night." And so imagine that's your daughter or your son working downtown and not having the support they need. So we have pledged for 500 new police officers just to get up to the national average, a police station downtown, piloting turnstiles on some of our more, I would say, fare evasion platforms in Calgary, and making sure that our city remains safe. And without a safe city, you will have nothing. All these great ideas we talk about bringing people here and vibrancy, people will look at Calgary and say, if the city is not safe, I'm not moving my business there, I'm not moving my family there, and people will leave the city. So I am a big proponent of making sure this is the safest city in Canada.
Thanks very much. Jeromy Farkas.
Thank you. And as we approach 2 million people, we have a choice to make: to finally deal with the root causes and build a city that's safer, more connected, and economically successful, or continue with the Band-Aid solutions, reacting too late, paying more, and leaving too many people behind. My public safety plan calls for pairing the two approaches that we know work: compassion and enforcement. Right now, we've seen a city council stuck, focused on either throwing just police at the problem or just social workers at the problem. We need to parry the both. So my plan calls for cracking down on the 50 to 100 individuals that we know are responsible for the vast majority of repeat violent offenses. It calls for reopening the downtown police station. It calls for more presence on transit, but it doesn't stop there. It calls for support for addictions treatment, for recovery, for housing first, for mental health, as well as cracking down on gangs, diverting youth from those unfortunate situations so that we can prevent crisis from beginning in the first place. It's not compassion versus enforcement. It has to be both for us to be able to move forward as a city.
Thanks very much. And last up on this topic, Thiessen, you have a minute.
Thank you so much. So we started by talking to mental health and addiction experts around the city, and we asked them for their input on what they would focus on their top priorities. And they said, focus on 3 things. Housing first strategy, 24/7 mental health and addiction supports housed with CPS and transit police. So that is our policy. We are proposing a housing first strategy. It is literally housing the homeless. It is both the compassionate thing to do, and it's been done before in Finland. And we realized from the Finnish study where they track their costs that it both helps with the success of treating for mental health and addiction issues when someone is housed, but it also saves about $100,000 per person per year by housing them first. We're talking about funding the 24/7 mental health and addiction support teams with Alpha House on transit throughout the city to keep people safe wherever they are. So I brought it to the police service. They told me they worked on it for 4 years. It's called Reach Up, and they can implement on day 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move into an open debate format on the topic of public safety. This segment will go for 10 minutes and will give us a chance to dig a little deeper into where the candidates stand on this issue. Candidates will not be timed on their answers in this segment, but we are asking them to answer the questions directly and concisely and to avoid interrupting each other. Now, the 10-minute clock starts now, and we begin with the question for Sonya Sharp. In your platform and here on stage, you talked about hiring 500 new police officers. Can you explain how you'll pull that off?
Well, when it comes to hiring, that would be the police chief and the commission looking at what they're looking for when they're hiring police officers. There's a business case that would have to come to council, but council has the money. And so if you're looking at 500 police officers, you're looking at about $75 million. $75 million is not hard to find in the corporation. I found 170 in 4 years. And so there's means of ways to funding what we need. And to be honest, there's not a price on safety right now when it comes to making sure we're getting back up to the national average. And so there are things that need to be kind of cut at the city and redirected into things like public safety.
I'd like to jump in. Can I? Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to say, first of all, it's not 75 million. It's about 100 to 150 million. And it will take you about 10 years to roll it out. They can't recruit 500 officers and train them in 10 years. Secondly, and most importantly, the police aren't asking for 500 more officers. The chief of police and 3 successive chief of police have said to us, you cannot police your way out of this issue. So they're not asking for it. And it's going to cost you about a 5.4% tax increase to your property taxes per year. Lastly, I will say this. You do not make policing decisions on cop per prop ratios. That is an antiquated way to decide. And what that means in plain English is take the population and figure out how many police you need. A lot of the cities like Toronto we're comparing ourselves against have their transit police embedded in their services. So we could transfer transit police to the CPS service tomorrow, and we'd immediately be one of the best cop per pop ratios in the country and be no safer. This is why I have said it's about deployment. You need to get the officers deployed in a downtown police station, not a retail outlet, and you need to get the police working with mental health and addiction experts. They are not the best first point of contact for the vulnerable. Thank you.
Jyoti Gondek.
Well, one of the things I find very interesting is that the Calgary Police Service has told us plainly that we can't enforce our way out of this and they are looking for support. So when it comes to providing them supports, they're seeking help with mental health and addictions and housing. And Ms. Sharp, you have voted against all of the budget requests that would have supported those kind of programs in our core and within our city. You voted against housing initiatives regularly. You have voted against an increase to mental health and addiction support. So the very police officers that you're hoping to hire are begging you to make investments in things that would support them, and you won't do it.
May I answer?
Please.
Thank you. So I think the question was how we were going to support the police officers. And so the business case when they bring forward is to support the actual police officers in dealing with the things they have to deal with. And so you actually, unfortunately, didn't vote for the police in our very first year, and it became of a defunding issue. So what we're doing is we're catching up. And
that is blatantly false.
So,
you can look at the
anyways.
public record. Absolutely false.
Yeah, well, I mean, the conversation here is ultimately we have 20% plus of our officers who are actually on leave. How about we start by actually working on mental health programs and supporting those officers to get back to work? Then we wouldn't actually need to make up numbers like 500 officers.
What does that look like, Jeff?
Well, I think it's working with the chief to understand why people are off. I mean, let's face it, crime has changed, and it's changed dramatically in the last 4 years. The types of responses that Calgary Fire and that Calgary Police are going to, these aren't like anything we've seen before. This is a different world. And so more supports for officers, more supports for frontline people is what's needed. But what we're talking about here is where Sonya has proposed cuts over the last 3 years to get rid of mental health and addiction strategies. Part of that would have supported officers. She supported cuts to the low-income transit pass, which we know is part of that mental health and addiction piece that people need to be able to work so they can live, so they can eat. We don't want them back on the streets. So to me, it's making up numbers of how many officers are needed. I think, quite frankly, you should talk to the chief, not the union.
I actually talked to the chief, and I just want to say one thing. I did not support mental health and addiction strategies. I did. And you're talking and listening to two people that defunded the police in their last term. I'm actually still speaking. And what I will say is that what we're looking for is making sure our city's safe with boots on the ground. When you're speaking mental health and addiction strategy, again, roles and responsibilities of our municipal government, working with the provincial government. So if you want to go for the provincial government, there is an election coming in 2 years, and I think that's where you should channel your energy.
You can't wait for them, and you won't invest.
I'm going to bring Jeromy into the conversation. Your pen has been going, but not your mouth. I say that with respect.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. I want to bring in those with the lived experience. In advance of the debate, I don't know if you're here, Alexandra, but you offered the experience from the front line, what the actual folks on the ground are experiencing. And fights like this between compassion or enforcement, it doesn't work. The truth is that we need both. And my public safety plan calls for, yes, reversing the city cuts that were made to mental health funding, providing greater support for alternative call response models, things like the Alpha House's help team, and also working with the provincial government to launch a 10-year social sector surge to fully fund family and community support services. But the fact is, collectively, with 12 years on council, neither of you have been able to do what's been necessary to support the front line, fund compassion, but also ensure that the support for the police is there so that they can deliver the work and be held accountable for it.
I'm going to move this
Actually,
along
I would like to
on
myth-bust
this
something.
theme. On this theme, and we'll go to Jyoti Gondek first. There has been a lot of talk. This is a question around scope to a degree. A lot of talk about the root causes of this needing to be addressed. How much of that responsibility falls to City Hall?
There's a very plain thing that we have to address. People are in crisis. Public safety is something that's being threatened. And if we sit and wait for the provincial government to step up, we are going to leave people in positions of jeopardy. So sometimes you have to act even though it's not your lane. The entire problem with staying in your lane is when you have a partner who's ready to bulldoze over you and not pick up their responsibility. We are $437 million short every year in funding from the provincial government that we have to try to make up. And when it comes to mental health and addictions treatment, we have been promised for 4 years to find some sort of a solution, and they've yet to do anything. So I'm not going to stay in my lane while people are dying on the streets, and family members, some of people that are in this audience right now, are suffering. We have to step up when others won't.
Jeff Davison?
I actually want to myth bust something here because this lie that Sonya keeps telling about defunding police is crazy to me. Listen to what the police chief says. When the police chief said to me, Jeff, we need body-worn cameras, I supported that. When the police chief said to me, Jeff, we need support for mental health for our officers, we supported that. When the police chief said, Jeff, we need new helicopters because Calgary has the most widely flown police choppers in the world, I supported that. I actually listened to the chief, not their union telling us what to do. So don't ever spill lies that we defunded anything. Part of the reason officers are 20% of them off on leave right now is because you refused to get behind a program that would have actually supported them with the right response at the right time, and it's something their chief asked us for.
Brian Thiessen.
I'd like to add something. There was some defunding of the police done. It's when the province eliminated photo radar. In the 4 years that I worked as police commission chair, we brought up the police budget by $25 million a year. That took 4 years of hard work. In one fell swoop of the pen, the Premier eliminated photo radar and $28 million from the police budget. And guess who sent us the bill? Sonya Sharp and Jyoti Gondek. They passed a motion, you paid for that. So that was an actual defunding of the police. And I will also say this, at one of our first debates, Sonya Smith-Sharp said that she would work on closing the Schumer Centre, write a letter to the Premier, and ask the Premier to close the Schumer, and then, her words, then she would come up with a plan. That is the most dangerous thing I have ever heard. All use would immediately become street use. It would push everything onto the streets. Our communities would be in serious danger. If the province decides to close the Schumer, we need a serious, well-thought-out plan to treat people for mental health and addictions and interdict in the street emergencies and transit emergencies that we are going to see all over this city.
Thanks very much. We'll go to Sonya Sharp.
Sure. So first of all, it's Sonya Sharp, not Sonya Smith-Sharp, just to make sure we know that. Sorry, Brian, I know.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. But it's all good. It's all good. Make sure it's no Sonya Smith on the ballot. But what I do want to say is, up here, standing up here, I have lived experience on mental health and addiction, and I know what it's like to lose somebody to addiction. And so when I call on the Schumer to be closed, it's not because I have no compassion. I have tons of compassion. And what it is taking care of everybody, including those that deserve the dignity, that are on the street. So what I'm saying is, let's make it safe for everybody. So if the Premier or the government of Alberta needs 4 sites, we are the biggest landowner in the city. So let's give them the land to build the buildings they need. That is what I meant by closing it. Another thing is, and I have to be honest, the stopgap money that we approved at council came from emergency reserve. No tax went up. So I'll stop there.
It's a provincial issue, but the Schumer matters to a lot of people, in this room. We'll give you a word on it. Jeromy.
Well, I'll just say that there's only one taxpayer. There's no such thing as reserves that don't come from the taxpayer. It comes from Calgarians to begin with. My vision is for us to work collaboratively with the provincial and federal government. We need to move on from this idea of jurisdiction and finger pointing. It's a collective responsibility, public safety, mental health, addiction, all of this, and we need to be able to work collaboratively with the provincial government and the federal government to be able to deliver for Calgarians.
All right. Thank you all. That's 10 on public safety. We're moving on now to our next topic. We will be discussing the pace of population growth in Calgary. Everybody wants to live here. Now, if current trends continue, we're heading to a population of $2 million, 2 million people in a big hurry. $2 million, holy smokes. So 2 million people in a big hurry. Calgarians are feeling the impact. In our CBC poll, we found that 64% of respondents thought the city was growing too fast, and the majority of them feel it's having a negative impact on them personally. Our question, to open this up for every candidate, is how would you address the issues population growth is having on the city, and how would you pay for it? We'll begin with you, Jyoti Gondek.
Thank you. One of the reasons that we have such tremendous growth is because there's a little campaign called Alberta is Calling. People answered that call, and guess who didn't step up and fund a single thing that they should have? People moving to our city deserve to live with dignity. That means housing. And guess who's been leading the country and the province in housing? It's the City of Calgary. It's your municipal government, and not with a partnership from the province. We also need investments in healthcare and education. Those aren't coming anytime soon. Our roads need more support. That's not coming from the provincial government. So when you are $437 million in the hole every year from a partner who won't work with you, this dream of working collaboratively doesn't work. So we are fighting back to figure out how we can make sure that a province that invited all of these people here is actually going to foot the bill for it.
Thank you very much. Brian Thiessen, you are next on this one. You have a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've also brought that up before, and I always say that, I would have built the housing before I did the ad campaign. But here's where we found ourselves. So we've proposed a comprehensive housing first strategy. We are focused on housing as a priority in every decision made at City Hall. We've proposed streamlining the regulatory process, so reviewing the regulations, removing red tape, and making it easier to build housing. We have a 3-3-3-1 housing policy. 3 days for a housing rental, 3 weeks for a house and townhouse, 3 months for a mid-rise, and 1 year for a large project. And if the city doesn't get its act together and they don't move at the speed of business, we approve. We need to move faster. We need to build more housing in this city. And lost in all the discussion were the neighborhoods. City Hall stopped listening to people's concerns about their neighborhoods. So we're going to introduce a process whereby neighborhoods are consulted about density in their neighborhoods. And I'll talk more about that later because I'm out of time.
We will also go to a section on zoning, and we'll come back to you in this one, Brian, but we'll focus on growth and taxation. Jeromy, you're up next. The question is, how would you address the issues population growth is having on the city, and how would you pay for it?
Well, growth is that number one issue that this mayor and council has been grossly unprepared for. Over the last 4 years, we had 300,000 brand new neighbors arrive to the city. Many of them just like my dad, who came here as a refugee and immigrant from elsewhere. My dad brought a lot of things, strengths, dreams, talents, but he didn't bring a swimming pool. He didn't bring water pipes. He didn't bring police cars. He didn't bring all of the things, the services, the infrastructure that we need to be able to succeed. And it's the fact that this council has underfunded what's important. They've ignored maintenance of key essential infrastructure like our water pipes. We're now at a point where we lose 25%. 25% of the water we produce in our water treatment plants are lost. We've been told that it's about $1 billion fix to be able to fix our pipes, yet they still had $1 billion for a new arena, of which 85% of the upfront cost is being borne by taxpayers. So we can meet the moment, we can continue to grow, but we got to spend the money that we have more wisely so that we can meet the needs of Calgarians at a street level.
Thanks very much. Sonya Sharp, you are up next. Your time starts now.
Thank you. I think what's important is, I know there was a campaign allowing more people to move to Alberta. I mean, my family moved to Canada from Italy to have a better life, and I think we can't pin people for wanting to live here. I think that's vilifying them. But what we need to do is know, again, we have a lot of land. Let's let this land go to market and let the developers build. And what people need to realize that, and to be realistic, some of the most new housing supply that's affordable are in new communities. I'll give you an example like Stonegate. They have housing adjacent to amenities, communities, and there are families living there, especially families that come here from different countries. They're multi-generational, and we want to make sure that they feel safe in neighborhoods and they have the amenities to go to. The other thing that we can talk about, that I've talked about with Communities First, is looking at some of our unutilized transit stations and doing some seniors housing in there. Because what people aren't paying attention to, and I've mentioned to the province, you're going to have a seniors housing crisis pretty soon because they're going to have nowhere to live. So we need to start refocusing on what audience we're building for.
Last up on this issue of growth is Jeff Davison. Go ahead.
Well, we haven't managed growth. I mean, that's, I think, a failure of the city. At the end of the day, we've been told we have a housing crisis, we have an affordability crisis, but these are both self-inflicted. When it takes 8 years to get a building out of the ground in Calgary, we failed. We failed to manage the growth. And so thinking about things, how we do things differently, transit-oriented development, new community growth, yes, all of these things are a big piece. I'll give you a good example of how we've managed growth on the west side. As a city councillor on the west side, I put in 3 new existing neighborhood districts. So you've got Springbank Hill, West District, the project at Winsport. 3 projects that will add 55,000 residents to the west side, and we've done that inside of 6 years. Largely in part, those communities are coming together now. They're almost finished. You've got amenities, you've got mixed use, you've got affordability built in, because it was led by the private sector, and the city moved the needle to move quickly because we knew the demand was there. At the end of the day, we have to change the process if we want to manage growth in a better way, and that's what we fully intend to do.
All right, thank you all for that. Now, Jeff, I'm going to stay with you here. We're going to begin our open debate on the topic of growth with a question to you. Growth has put an additional stress on infrastructure. Recent estimates put the city's infrastructure deficit at more than $7 billion. You're calling for a 4-year freeze on property taxes. How do you pull that off given the pressures the city is under?
Well, there's a couple things here. I mean, number one, Marda Loop is a great example of how we've gotten it wrong, right? We've had roads that have been dug up 3 times. Now we're going to have a 4th dig up because, the city has developed and decided more density should go there. It's predictability and planning. It's much the same we should be doing with our tax base. At the end of the day, this is a responsible way of saying we can manage growth. So let's look at how we build tax base, how we have an industrial land strategy that supports that. Calgary has 4,000 acres of available industrial land that we currently collect that much in tax base on. It's building new tax base around those communities I just spoke about. Transit-oriented development is a great idea. New community growth. All of these will build the tax base so we stop eroding the tax rate. In addition to that, we're going to manage the over $7 billion of assets we have very differently. Our investment income can be better, and that's a big way we can offset inflation, for instance, as we move forward. This is all very reasonable, right? We can adjust our risk. There is lots of things the city can do to act like a business and should.
Okay, thank you. Now, I want to get everybody in the conversation on property taxes. The proposed increase for residential property taxes in 2026 is 5.4%. Responding to the notion of a tax freeze, as well as, are you comfortable with that 5.4%, or what would you do to bring that number down? We'll start with you, Sonya.
Sure. Well, the reason I'm not comfortable with the tax freeze, because it was done previously, I think it was 1992-95. And so if you're a city employee, that means you won't be getting a raise, because that's actually what will happen. They will look at finding ways to make sure that you don't get an increase to your income. Looking at the tax rate at 5.4%, I voted against it. I saw the preview to the budget, and I wasn't happy with what's in there. There were things put in there by administration where, when council brought some things forward, I'll give you 2 examples. 2 community growth areas that were supposed to be in the budget weren't actually in the budget, and we're still seeing 5.4. So if we're in a housing crisis, why are we putting things in the budget that belong to administration, not us? So I'm looking for an efficient way to reduce taxes, bringing forward a finance committee that's looked at in the public, not behind doors, and making sure that senior administration brings their books quarterly to this committee so we can go line item by line item, because simple budgeting means you're hiding things.
Jyoti Gondek, I'll start first with the idea of a tax freeze proposed by Mr. Davison.
Tax freeze is an interesting concept. I mean, if you had proposed that you would do some sort of a tax adjustment in the 4th year of the budget and then planned a 4-year budget based on some new ideas, I could understand that. But you've been on council before. Doing a 4-year tax freeze is not something that's realistic. It's a nice thing to say. It's an impossible thing to deliver on. I think the biggest thing you have to do is strengthen your tax base, and we've been doing that with the downtown revitalization strategy. We have converted 11 office buildings to residential. There's 1,500 new homes that will go downtown. Those property values have increased, and that gives us a stronger tax base. And I led the charge on the strongest inland port in Canada, the Prairie Economic Gateway. By striking a joint venture with Rocky View County, we are going to deliver 30,000 jobs and $7 billion worth of economic output. That's the kind of visionary work you have to do to strengthen the tax base so that you can all have the services you need and deserve at an affordable rate.
Brian Thiessen, on the proposed tax freeze, as well as the level as it's proposed right now for next year, 5.4%.
Yeah, I just think starting out your process with a tax freeze is dangerously naive, frankly. Nobody anticipated the water main failure. We have to pay for emergencies like that. But you know, I'm talking about a couple other things. The $7 billion deficit in infrastructure didn't come about magically. It came about because previous councils collected our inspection taxes, kept property tax low, and didn't maintain our infrastructure. So now that's what an infrastructure deficit means. We have to reinvest, we have to fill the potholes, we have to restore the roads, and we have to get back to the water mains. So we've proposed an actual concrete solution for that 22% of water that leaks into the ground, a water utility. Edmonton loses 5% of their treated water leaking into the ground. The reason? They move their water assets and their expertise into EPCOR, and they manage it like a professional organization owned by the city, and we're proposing that so it's funded, by the way, by fees in the future, not on your mortgage. So it reduces the cost of your house up front, and it ensures there's an organization that's actually going to be responsible for maintaining the water system.
Potholes and water main breaks are the opposite of magic, I think. Yeah. All right, Jeromy Farkas, we've got a few
Dark
threads here.
magic.
There's a tax freeze, but also I'm interested in how the city gets to this confronting the infrastructure deficit.
For sure, and fees in the future are still taxes. That's just taxes that aren't transparent. When I left City Council in 2021 as Vice Chair of the City of Calgary's Audit Committee, CD Howe Institute rated our financial transparency at an A-. 4 years later, we're rated at a D+. Financial responsibility has to be the #1 focus of the next mayor and council. We can't continue blowing billions of dollars on corporate welfare. We need to invest in making sure absolutely every dollar the Calgarians send to City Hall is responsibly spent. Myself as a nonprofit leader, as a CEO of a charity, I've had to make every single penny count. I've had to report to a board to ensure that we're not just spending money, but we're investing in the right things to reduce Calgarians' long-term costs. That's why I daylighted the issue of our water pipes back in 2018 with Councillor Drew Farrell. If we can attack the areas of deficiency, if we can maintain what we have, we can actually reduce the long-term costs for Calgarians. And that's the difference between simply spending money and investing.
Okay, Sonya Sharp, we're going to go to you, but I want to ask you about, I mean, we're talking about the water main now. Might as well stay there. What did we get wrong? What should be done to make sure a situation like that does not happen again in the context of infrastructure, communication with the public, trust?
On the water main break in particular, or just in general?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, well, I mean, Ward 1 was ground zero, Moness was ground zero. And when I walked down to that scene that morning and saw mothers pushing carts or baby strollers with no babies but bottled water, my heart sunk into my stomach because I just realized what was happening. You had a whole community without water, and how are we going to get them water? Your #1 job is to make sure, as a councillor, as an elected official for the city, is to have clean drinking water. And I couldn't provide that, so we were getting water to everybody. And you know, it was a very reactive moment. More so, you were trying to make sure that the traffic could flow and businesses were impacted and get going. But I do find it interesting that we still didn't see the report, and we're not going to see it till the end of the year. It's very interesting that that was changed on council. But what I have pledged is to do an infrastructure planning office where that we're looking at projects that are happening in Calgary, like water main replacement, what's happening in Martyr Loop, and looking at projects before, during, and after to make sure there's proper oversight. And that needs to happen because it's gone. And so we need to be accountable for the water main failure in what we may have known, but things do happen, but we also have to have the money to pay for it. So back to the tax freeze, you're not going to pay for infrastructure like that.
Jyoti Gondek, on the timing of the report on the water main break and what you learned.
I think the biggest learning for me was that we weren't communicating quickly enough or often enough. I remember getting the message on Wednesday that this water main had broken. By Wednesday night at 10 p.m., I was told just how serious it was. I was on the phone with Premier immediately, and at 5:30 the next morning, you all got that emergency alert because it was a dire situation. I went to the site on Thursday to check it out. I talked to the experts on the ground to find out what was being done, and then I went to administration and said, let's go, let's communicate this. Calgarians need to know. They wanted to waited till Friday. They wanted to wait some more. By Saturday, I said, this is over. I will be on the airwaves tomorrow telling people everything I know so that they have peace of mind that we are actually addressing this situation. The greatest learning was that we need to communicate early and often with all of you what we know so that you can rest easy that we're dealing with it.
Going to experiment with lightning round because I want to bring this really back to growth. More people means the need for more amenities, rec centers, libraries, parks, infrastructure that works. Is Calgary falling behind on this? And how would you meet that challenge? I'm going to give you like 20 seconds, Brian Thiessen.
Game plan is a great strategy, but it's unfunded. We need to fund it. We also need to create funding for the arts and community centers throughout this city. So we have to put the funding behind plans like that to rebuild our recreational infrastructure.
Jeff Davison?
I would just say this, don't let anybody tell you that a tax freeze is not possible just because they don't have the experience or knowledge on how to do it. Number one issue out there right now is affordability. And I'm listening to Calgarians, and I'll tell you this much, you do not create affordability by charging people more money every year. We can manage growth in a better way.
Jyoti Gondek.
While my colleagues on the stage were creating plans on how they would deal with recreation deficits, I actually brought a motion to have $20 million reinvested into community facilities, pools, splash parks, your fire halls, and that motion was actually something that wasn't supported by the Communities First candidates, even though their communities would have benefited.
Sonya Sharp.
Yeah, I'll just mention that notice of motion actually had projects in the hopper, so it was a political stunt that was brought forward for all of us to take a look at it. And some of our splash parks that we wanted weren't funded. But I will say that it's a fix-it-first mentality for Communities First. Fix what you have, stop throwing good money after bad, and look at game plan and make sure we can fund it accordingly.
Thank you very much. Jeromy Farkas.
Yeah, these words just ring hollow to wake up to these issues in year 12 of time on City Council or year 20 in administration. The fact is City Council has actually eroded the community amenities. They've started to sell off city parks. Every year, the Inglewood Pool, the Vacovas of the world have to fight for those investments. So we need to show up not just for the big ticket items in the downtown, but for the community amenities at the street level that Calgarians rely on.
All right. Okay, it is now time for our third topic of the evening. It's one that gets a bit of attention, the issue of blanket rezoning. Now, the bylaw passed by the last mayor and council to increase the housing stock in established communities has become a lightning rod. Our question for this round, I'll say it has some layers. What impact has blanket rezoning had on our city? And do you support keeping the policy, repealing it, or replacing it with something else? Sonya Sharp, you were up first on this. You have a minute.
Okay, well, I'll say right now that blanket rezoning is not making houses affordable. It actually caused a wedge in all the communities. I have committed to repealing blanket rezoning, reinstating what was there, and looking to cut the planning process where it needs to be cut. People's voices need to come back to council. I will say one thing that blanket rezoning has done. It's torn down larger homes and that suit big families that come here to live in Calgary. It also tears down big houses that some of our students are living in. They can't afford the new builds that are happening in those locations. Many newcomers and multi-generational families need these homes. The other thing, the push for blanket rezoning was more ideological than practical. I've tried to stop blanket rezoning in 2023 before it was a thing. And I was actually vilified by a member of council that I work with to the point where it didn't even pass a committee. And I'll give credit. There are some people up here that came to speak for it. But those that didn't, where were you? I was there saying no. Brian was there saying yes at the time, and Jyoti supported it. But the other two, you didn't show up once for those 4 weeks.
Jeromy Farkas, you're next. Your time begins now.
Blanket rezoning speaks to the broken trust between members of council and the community. One of the deepest issues was that this whole saga has reflected a mayor and city council unable or unwilling to listen to the experience of Calgarians. And moves like, say, Sonya Sharp and Community First to backtrack on their commitments to repeal, to go back to maybe an optional process, only further erodes the confidence and the trust that Calgarians have. But we need to recenter ourselves. This is not about repealing blanket rezoning. I'm absolutely committed to doing so, but we need to continue to build the housing that Calgarians need. Right now, we are in a housing affordability crisis. If not blanket rezoning, we need to move forward on a transit-oriented development plan. We need to focus on the development occurring where the services and infrastructure can support it. So these two extremes of build everything everywhere versus build nothing anywhere, these aren't serving Calgarians well. We need to move forward on a plan to build housing, and that's what I'm running on.
Jeff Davison, you're our next speaker. A minute again on what impact has blanket rezoning had on our city, and do you support keeping the policy, repealing it, or replacing it with something else?
Well, I'm the only one up here who hasn't wavered. We will roll back the blanket rezoning. This simply does not work for Calgarians, and when the majority of Calgarians come out and voice their concerns on a project And simply to have this city council, Sonya Sharp, the mayor, simply say we know better, it's got to go, right? The last thing I want to see is our neighbors fighting over parking in communities. And discretion has told us now that some of these units have 0.5 parking. I don't know anyone who owns half of a car, but parking is a big concern in our city and needs to be addressed differently. But I'll tell you, the greatest thing about Calgary is the diversity of our communities. I don't want all these communities to look the same. I want to be able to have a different experience downtown or in Martel Loop that I could have in the Northeast. To me, this is not Calgary. We want to celebrate the diversity of our communities, not simply make everything look the same. And at a point where the average row house is starting at $700,000, that's not affordable. To all the people who say, but basement suites are important, we have a secondary suite program in this city. They can be anywhere now. To me, this is about respecting the diversity of our communities and doing better to listen to people.
All right, Brian Thiessen, you're next.
Listen, I'm going to do the hard work of fixing zoning. I know the easiest thing in the world is, the mob is formed, grab a pitchfork, run out in front of it, and 3 of my opponents on this stage are doing just that. But what I'm telling you is this: they will end up, whether a year from now or 5 years from now, to the situation we're in today. We will need to fix it. We would lose $225 million in federal funding. It adds $50,000 to the cost of a house, the delays from zoning. So when I say fix it, this is what I'm talking about. First of all, we will cap open zoning at 4 units per lot. And for buildings that are over 4 units on a lot, we will implement a good neighbors program where we will have developers consult with neighborhoods, notify neighborhoods of that project, everyone within 100 meters, have an open house, hear the neighborhood concerns on planning, on parking, and they will provide a report that people will have posted on the city's website so you can see how the neighborhood was consulted and what was implemented.
Thanks very much. Over to you, Jyoti Gondek.
My goal is to make sure that people can age in place in the communities that they love, and I want to make sure that when people's adult children are moving back here, they can actually afford to buy a place in the communities that they grew up in. And that's something right now that's difficult in our city. So the goal of rezoning is something that happens over time as communities evolve. Let's not forget that we also have almost 100 action items in our housing strategy, and those include 17 land sales that we've already done to nonprofit affordable housing providers to make sure that people can live with dignity. It includes incentives for secondary suites to make sure that people have a place they can rent that's safe for them. It also includes the downtown revitalization strategy to make sure we are building more homes downtown. And the incentive we provide has actually allowed developers to create 20% below market units in downtown, which is near all of our amenities. So there are many things that go together hand in hand with rezoning to deliver on housing.
Okay, we're into the open debate on this topic, and I want you to feel free to respond to each other's ideas. I know right now I feel like I'm in a lot of control of this, which I sort of like, but also feel free to respond to each other. All right, we're going to start with a question for Jyoti Gondek. I mean, you voted in favor of the bylaw. You were a champion of it. What do you make of this criticism that new units being built are just not affordable?
I think one of the most important things to remember is that we had a land use hearing, which meant people came and told us what they were worried about. And what they were worried about was what was going to be built next door or across the street. And none of that happens during land use. So it's unfortunate that we give a voice to people at a stage that it doesn't help them. So we made amendments that allow people to be heard when that development permit comes forward. We directed administration to go out and engage with the community. We directed them to create a guide that shows what type of homes are acceptable in communities. And we gave a voice to the public at the time that a development permit comes forward. That's what people asked for. 700 people that spoke, their biggest concern was, I want to see what's being built and I want to be able to weigh in. And we gave them that voice. The report that comes back to us in January will tell us what they felt, and I want to make a decision at that point about whether anything different needs to be done, but I want the people to have their voice.
Jeff Davison.
I don't need a report to tell you how they felt. They were very upset by it. Just kind of an obvious there to state. But I find it funny because often you want to process people in this and the land use of this and the certainty of this. At the end of the day, the biggest investment most of us make is in our home. And that's what we're focused on. We're not focused on city council processes. So, all due respect, where was I at the public hearing? I have a day job. That's why I wasn't there. I support 24,000 patients in their cancer journey every single year in this province. That's where I was. So when talking to my city councillor, I did voice my concerns. I did try to send letters to city council. And like many of us in this city, it was all ignored. So, maybe we should change the process and have better accessibility for citizens who want to give their voices, which is why I'm saying we will implement technology to make sure more people can attend public hearings. We can do it in the boardroom. I do it in healthcare. We can do it in the court systems. Why has City Council not adapted to letting more people voice their concerns where and when we need them?
Sonya Sharp.
Yeah, I think the 700 and something people that came to City Hall had a day job too, and they made some time to speak, or they wrote a letter, or they went teams. But I'm just going to ask Jeromy a question. Jeromy, I would like to know, you keep saying that Communities First flipped, and I think what it was is that our explanation maybe was too technical for you, because you took it the wrong way. But if you were so against blanket rezoning, how come you're surrounding yourself with people that came to public hearing to speak for blanket rezoning, and where were you? And no letter from you came in. Actually, there were letters from ex-councillors saying what they thought, and so I'm going to challenge you on this one, Jeromy, because you've had made such a big deal about me flipping, which I have not. I've been against blanket rezoning before blanket rezoning was even a policy. So explain to me where you were and why you surround yourself on your own team with
Okay,
those
over to
that
you,
came.
Jeromy. Thanks.
Thank you. Just want to make sure he understood. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to speak to what's being lost here. It's the uncertainty that Calgarians are feeling. I approached this maybe in a little bit different way than the others on the stage. By the time I was finished with grade 12, I had to move houses 6 or 7 times. I always had to worry about a roof over my head. I always had to worry about whether my parents would be able to make rent. And that's why my housing plan speaks to not just the experience of homeowners. I do commit to repealing blanket rezoning and moving forward with a community-informed approach, but we have to think more broadly than this. We have to think about the students out there who are struggling to make rent. We have to think about the seniors who don't know if they're going to have the option to be able to downsize in their communities. So yes, we have to restore the community voice in this process, and that's what my housing plan does. So on my website, you'll see a 100-day roadmap about restoring certainty, not just for homeowners, but also for renters, for the nonprofit sector, for city administration, ways that we can be more innovative. Right now, I think there's a lot of people, especially the 40% of Calgarians who rent, who are listening to this conversation and wondering, how are we actually going to build the needed housing? So that's how we need to move forward. We need to canvass a wide variety of voices. We can't delve too much into one extreme or the other. We need to move forward in a practical way, and that's what my plan calls for.
Mr. Farkas, while you were on council, you voted against secondary suites, which is probably one of the most affordable rental opportunities for people. You repeatedly voted against any kind of housing project that would come forward that would allow for more housing. You did not support low-income supports. You did not support transit, which is the greatest equalizer to get people around the city. You didn't support anything, and you didn't defend any of the people that you now think you're so passionate about. You didn't show up. What makes you think that we believe you now?
That's just wrong, and that's verifiably wrong. For 4 years, I was a director on the Calgary Housing Company. I advocated strongly for continued investment. When I was voting no against the arena, I was voting to divert those funds for affordable housing in the downtown, to fund our Green Line, to be able to support a downtown police station. I was a champion for the low-income transit pass. So again, you're entitled to your own opinions, but not your own facts.
Okay, we're going to bring Brian Thiessen into the conversation.
Yeah,
Boy, it's just a
I'll
nice
jump
history
in there.
lesson in terms of where everybody worked together in the past. Brian, you want the bylaw tweaked to include a 4-unit cap and more consultation with neighbors. What does increased consultation achieve if the process does not include a public hearing, does not include a vote by council?
I'll tell you exactly what it does. It gives the neighborhood the input that they've asked for. They were ignored in the public hearings, and people were justifiably really frustrated. So by doing it at the pre-permit stage, you have the developer consult with the neighborhood, get feedback from the neighborhood about what their concerns are with parking, and other concerns with the neighborhood, and they get to do all of that, and it's submitted in a report as part of the permit application. On the developer side, they get to see what the temperature is of the neighborhood, whether they can resolve those concerns, and none of it adds any time to the administration process, which is still streamlined by 6 months. So it's the most efficient way to actually get public input, and it actually solves a lot of these issues. And I will say this is an imminently solvable issue. Certain people on this stage have poured gasoline on the fire on the zoning issue. It is one piece of a housing report. We can solve this issue. We all agree that we have 100,000 people coming per year, and we need to build the housing for them, whether it's rental for students, seniors who want to age in place, and we all agree we need to build the housing. We can fix zoning. We can resolve this issue. It does not need to divide us, and with real leadership, people who aren't making this a political issue, I will get us there.
Jeff Davison, is the city still in a housing crisis?
Well, it's a self-inflicted one. Again, it takes too
The
long
answer's
to
yes?
develop. So the answer is yes. I mean, which is why we want to flip the script and actually put communities first. And I'll just do a straw poll. How many people are in favor of repealing blanket rezoning? Anybody against? Point made.
Okay, I've got another question for you then. You're calling for a full repeal and for the focus to be put on new communities, communities within communities, as there's some track record for. Would that not put an additional strain on the city's budget, back to some of your values around taxation?
No, and to be honest, what we're flipping over here is that we're putting communities back in charge of their communities so that we understand how and where they want to develop first before we get into permit stage and all the confusing pieces of how council is going to move things forward. The idea is that if we go back to the rules, we can work on hyper-local area structure plans, we can involve community early, we can respect what community does. Remember, a lot of these plans have thousands of hours of community involvement, and what we're actually tired of is giving our opinion and then being totally ignored when it comes to land use. So what we want to do is make sure we hold the line in how we develop these things together, putting those community representatives first.
Jyoti Gondek, I want to give you a chance to respond to this idea that people were ignored. Hundreds of people lined up to talk, people sent in letters, emails, talked to their counselors, and they were ignored. How do you respond to that?
I listened to every person that came to present to us, and I can tell you that their concerns were rooted in what's going to be built next door to me or across the street. So Mr. Thiessen's talking about a plan that would give people input at the permit stage. That's exactly what we directed. We have now made the ability for people to speak up about what's being proposed in their neighborhood possible. You did not have that opportunity before. If it fit within the parameters of the land use, it was going to get built. We opened a door for you to be able to contribute your voice to what you want to see in your community. And I do believe that we did not communicate that well. We had amendments that we should have explained much better. We should have spent the time leading up to rezoning talking about what we were trying to accomplish, and we certainly should have explained to you what the amendments mean to you, that we have given you a voice.
Okay, 20 seconds to Sonya Sharp, just to explain why you looked so puzzled.
Well, that's the development authority that actually looks at those plans. Council just removes their voice too when blanket rezoning was removed from your voice, which means a development permit gets reviewed by the city planner. We get a circulation saying if we approve or not approve. We don't listen to your voice other than what you send to the planner. The development authority, who is none of us, we are never the development authority, approves those applications, which is called development permit. Your voices were removed at land use when you can come to your elected officials to speak about the single biggest investment in your community, and that needs to be brought back, and I'm committing to it.
Thanks very much. Okay, we are going to move on to the topic of leadership. This is our final topic before we flip into some sort of playful format here. Now, considering the Mayor of Calgary has only one vote on council, building consensus among your council colleagues is essential to addressing the issues we've been debating this evening. Our question for each of you is, how well do you think Calgary City Council has operated over the last 4 years, and what can be done to improve it in the upcoming term? Please do look forward at some point here. Now, Jeromy Farkas, you're up first on this. You have a minute.
Thank you. I want to use all the lessons I've learned from my entire career as a community association volunteer, as a city councilor, police commissioner, nonprofit director, as a CEO reporting to a board. If anything went wrong, it didn't matter. I was personally responsible. I was personally accountable. I went to my board chair, I explained what was wrong, and I showed a plan to fix it. And when things went well, I brought in the individual who was responsible to the board meeting, and I showed the board that this was the person who had worked their butt off to deliver for the organization. And that's the kind of experience I want to bring. Our next mayor has to be somebody who could count to 8, but it has to be a different 8. It can't be 7 or 8 people on the outside, 8 people on the inside, fighting for 4 years like we've seen. We need to give up a little bit of the leadership from the mayor's chair so that they can be more the coach, the mentor, the captain. Of course, sometimes the mayor needs to be the quarterback, But by giving up the leadership, by taking ownership, that's how we can actually build a city council working for Calgarians again.
Thanks very much, Jeromy. All right, over to you, Brian Thiessen.
Yeah, listen, I've worked for 30 years in leadership roles, and my day job is guiding organizations when they need to change out their C-suite and CEO roles. And what I see when I observe this City Hall is that there's a lot of phrases used like, I directed admin, or blaming administration. In my experience, employees in organizations don't deliver because they get bad leadership. And the leadership comes from council. This council is 15 individuals running in different directions. So I would get council together and I would build a consensus, as I did as managing partner of a law firm, as I did as chair of the Calgary Police Commission. Once we issue direction, I would get admin clear directives on how we wanted to implement on our key priorities, measure and expect results, and I would absolutely, when I'm mayor, make sure that the buck stops with me. No blaming admin, no blaming the province, rolling up my sleeves and solving issues by working with people who can have the expertise and are in city admin.
Okay. Jeff Davison, it is your turn.
Well, I mean, frankly, we already have a two-party state. We have the yes mayor party and we have the naysayer party, and all of this just leads to dysfunction. That's why I keep talking about this needs to be about dysfunction versus direction in this election, because leadership is about bringing people together. We need a leader who can work with 14 other individuals, and they're all going to be elected for different reasons, representing different communities. Work together, bring them together, and find the common ground so that we can get things done for Calgarians. That's what my superpower is. I do that each and every day in healthcare, dealing with patients. We have doctors and families and nurses and care. All of those wraparound pieces are what we actually need to do to make an effect for the positive on one single patient. And that's what we need to think about when we bring Calgarians together. So ultimately, day one, we're going to get together as a new city council and put a strategic plan together. Because I think in the absence of having a strategic plan, chaos has reigned at City Hall, and it's time to put a plan in place that respects what Calgarians are asking us to do.
Jyoti Gondek.
The first thing that I did when I became mayor was connect with every member of council that had been elected. And I sat down with them and asked them, what do you wish to see in your ward, and what do you hope to accomplish, and how can I help you? I have worked with every member of council to help them write motions and amendments, even the ones I didn't agree with, to make sure that they were able to bring them to the floor of council so we could have the debate. That's what a good leader does. You make sure that people's voices are heard because they're representing the public. So in that collaborative process, I have to tell you, for anyone who didn't read the paper this morning, we were just announced as the city with the strongest economy in Canada. And you don't do that by having a dysfunctional council. You do that because you brought people together. We have the greatest number of housing starts in this nation, 55% of all the housing starts in this province. We have the fastest growing tech sector in the country. And we did that because we showed investors that we are a city that believes in itself. We have invested in ourselves, and that has gained attraction, and we have investment as a result of it.
Over to you, Sonya Sharp.
Yeah, thank you. So what I would say is I'm a bold leader, and a leader who's actually focused on getting the things done. My leadership style won't change as mayor, but how I lead the city will change, and how the city leads will change. If you want to get things done, there's one thing we need to do first. When it comes to senior administration, the first thing I'm doing is calling a special meeting of council with all those elected. The new council needs to have a discussion on whether or not things need to be changed. To be clear, for the 99% of city employees that work there every day, I'm not talking about you. We want to have appropriate leadership for you as well, and I have your back. We have all heard about the grand commitments being talked about up here on our platforms, but nothing actually gets done until city administration realizes their job is actually being a public servant, and they are accountable, and they need to report to council, and we report to you. Calgarians care about the city, and we need to change. I have business experience, I have seen the city from the inside, and now as a politician.
Thanks very much. Okay, we go to a slightly shortened open debate round on this topic. And Brian Thiessen, I want to start with something you said. You said that you would not blame the province. My goodness, that seems crazy to take that tool out of your tool belt. The provincial government has stepped into
You've probably noticed I don't hesitate to call out the province. Yeah.
The provincial government has stepped into some municipal issues lately,
Jeromy.
pulling.
You forgot Jeromy.
You started.
Didn't you?
Jeremy started.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then why were we all saying we forgot Jeromy?
We didn't say.
Sorry,
Okay, round it
Jeromy.
up here.
We're just thinking of you, Jeremy.
I've got the floor.
All right.
Forgot Jeremy.
Forgettable Jeromy Farkas. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Brian,
Just
to
keep
you.
repeating the name.
Forgotten.
That's good.
Brian, to you. The provincial government has stepped into some municipal issues lately, to be sure, pulling the funding on the Green Line, insisting on a new alignment. As an example, what approach would you take as mayor in working with Premier Danielle Smith and her government?
Well, first of all, the Premier, we should be able to expect from Premier Danielle Smith the same amount of respect as a city council that she demands of the Prime Minister. So we are the elected representatives of Calgarians, and the Calgary Party was formed to stand up to Danielle Smith as she sought to take over City Council and get her friend Sonya Sharp elected with Communities First. So I am here to stand up for Calgarians because I think that Calgary City Council should act for only one group, Calgarians. And I will say this, Mr. Farkas has repeated for debate after debate how he's going to stand up against the evil of political parties. It is an easy promise to make when you've never built a team, you've never worked with people and brought them together. While you were walking in the woods, I was building a team that came up with the most comprehensive policies and a real plan to take on the province and fight the province at their own game.
Okay, we're talking about parties now and the relationship with the provincial government, Danielle Smith and the UCP government. Sonya, we'll start with you. Jeromy, I know you're in the hopper here too.
So I'm just going to say something that may be shocking to Mr. Thiessen. I'm a card-carrying nobody, but having a combative relationship with the province isn't going to do you any good because you need to work with them. You need their money. And so prioritizing a productive relationship with government is actually leadership. Your article the other day was...
I do not need to report to them, ma'am.
The other day, your article was very interesting coming out. But what I would say is I don't always agree with the provincial government, but I will work with them because we need their money to serve Calgarians. And am I in the UCP's pocket? No.
Name three substantial ways you've disagreed with the province. Three substantial issues that you've stood up to the province on.
I think the question was me being in her pocket. And
Well,
so
I
I
think
don't
you
even
are.
carry I don't even carry membership, Brian. I mean, the thing is your ploy to run for NDP with that whole article the other day, and I stood up with the province on the Green Line. I've stood up to the province on making sure that the radar was taken care of.
We've all seen videos of you getting fundraising appeals from the Premier directly on your behalf.
Please send those to me. That would be great, Brian. But I really think that what you're trying to pit is me against you on provincial matters, and I am not a card-carrying anybody. I'm serious about that. Anyone can look it up, and I'm here to do great work for Calgarians. And
I
work
think
with
you're
the
here to
provincial
work
government.
for Danielle Smith.
I am not. I don't work for anyone but the people sitting here, and I can't say the same for you because I think you're going the other direction.
Thank you both for the spirited exchange. Jeromy Farkas.
I'm running as an independent because Calgarians can't afford 4 years of this.
What about building a team?
I'm the only one. I am the only one in this race who is running legitimately as an independent. We see Mr. Thiessen with the Calgary Party. We see Mr. Davison with the ABC Party endorsed. We see Jyoti Gondek recently endorsed by the Calgary's Future Super PAC. We see Sonya Sharp with Communities First, and most recently with the endorsement to Take Back Alberta. At the end of the day, we need a. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a mayor? Can you imagine a mayor who? Brian, I'm talking.
Oh, I'm talking.
Can you imagine a mayor who walks into their first city council meeting, having spent millions of dollars and months trying to get their colleagues to lose? You have to work from day one to be able to build that team. And running as an independent, I've shown what I can do working with a team. You don't survive walking, crawling, and bleeding 172 days across North America unless you can be certified as a wilderness first responder, unless you can build the teams to be able to pull that off. You don't go toe-to-toe with the provincial government like I did at Glenville Ranch to save that beautiful park from being destroyed, unless you can bring together conservatives and progressives, grassroots and business leaders to get it done. And that's what I'm committed to do as Calgary's next mayor,
Jyoti
to
Gondek
focus on the
enters
plans
chat.
to make the city better,
There's
to
only
work with
one
everybody to
person-
get that done.
There's only one person on this stage that has actually had to go toe-to-toe with the provincial government on not just 3, but multiple items. The Green Line. When they revoked their funding on September 7th, I was the one who went back to them and said this is a big mistake and got them back to the negotiating table. When they said we are going to shut down the Cheermer and not give you an alternative, I'm the one that said you can't turn people out onto the street without some sort of a reasonable alternative. When they said you can't access federal funding anymore, I'm the one that went to them and said, you're going to have to fund us then, so you better find some way to get access to federal funding. And when they said that we don't support teachers, I'm the only one that showed up for teachers and said, we support you. You are backbone of our community, and without a solid public education, our kids are going nowhere.
I was there.
All right, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in here, and we're going to stay on the Green Line. And Jeff, I'll come to you. On this matter of the Green Line, the province wants to see it elevated through the downtown core. Do you support that, or do you think it should go underground as originally planned? We're going to go to like 30 seconds each here. Jeff.
First of all, I think Brian stole all of my comedy notes. This is great. I love being up here. I'll tell you, this is why things aren't working in partnership. I do not support the elevated level. I mean, I think that is incredibly irresponsible to put an elevated train 6 stories up. When we talk about building vibrancy and building placemaking and get more people downtown, an elevated track is just simply the wrong way to go. And we're yet again into another functional study that is about to cost us another $2 billion on the Green Line, which we don't need to do. We already know the cost of going cut and cover. And so, you know, Sonya Sharp's team keeps talking about deep tunnels, and they keep hitting up their Jim Gray and their Brian Fileski fans of killing the Green Line. Either they should just come out and say, let's kill the Green Line, or not. But Calgarians have been waiting for this for 20 years. I plan to deliver the rest of it on time, on budget, and doing it our way, the Calgary way. And we will push back on the province if this elevated track nonsense comes to fruition.
Sonya Sharp, the question, the original question, do you support the elevated line through the downtown core, or what?
I don't support the elevated line or under tunnel, so I'm not sure what Mr. Davison
You don't
is
support
actually
the train
saying.
at all.
I actually
Just come
support
clean
the
and say
train.
you
It was
don't
my
support it.
motion with Councillor McLean that brought the province back together because the Green Line died.
Was that the
And
same
so
motion
I'm
for
still
$284
speaking.
million
Thanks, let me
of
finish.
turnstiles?
I didn't interrupt
which
you,
would,
but thank you, Jeff. I really do
One at a
appreciate
time,
that.
Sonya Sharp.
So I
it is
just
a
would
debate.
say that I do support the Green Line, Event Center South, as far as we can go. And that's really critical, and get the ridership going and build trust back in our transit. The other thing about transit, we got to make it safe. So, you know, we got to look at the functional study, but I have no problem pushing back at the province.
We'll go to Brian Thiessen on the Green Line.
We absolutely, it was studied 4 times by 4 different engineering firms. Underground is the way to go. You know, the minister drawing a new route with a crayon on a cocktail napkin did not work. We need to get it underground, we need to get it built to the north, and we need to get a train, an east-west connector, and a train from the airport to downtown, like every other major city in North America.
Jeromy Farkas on the Green Line. And it's, you know, there may be pretty close to a consensus here, but how? How to get it done then?
Yeah, I support the Green Line. I support it underground. I support building
You voted
the train.
against it as a councillor.
I voted against the tunnel under the river. I voted for the Green Line portion when it came into the Beltline. So
Entire Green Line.
the problem here,
We were
is
all
that-
there. We were
The
all
problem,
there.
the problem here is that when it counted the most, this mayor and council folded. When the UCP came to this council and asked for $1 billion for an election stunt to guarantee their re-election in Calgary, you gave up all of the leverage. You gave them $1 billion blank check for their arena, and you got nothing in return. I would have fought hard to get investment, to get Green Line built, not just to the South Hospital, but to the north, where your residents in Ward 3 feel that they've abandoned you. Mayor
I
You
Gondek.
certainly
All
fought
right, hold
against
on,
the
hold
Green
on.
Line
Last
hard.
word to Jyoti Gondek.
When I was fighting for the Green Line North, and I was sitting up with colleagues like Jeff Davison trying to figure out how to get this done, you, sir, were at UCP fundraisers with your cronies.
Not true.
All right.
That's pretty true.
I mean, he did get trained at the Manning Institute. Like, let's call a spade a spade.
Thanks all. All right, we're into the next section of our debate, and this is going to work a little differently, although questions are being sent around already. We're now going to hand things over to the candidates who will have an opportunity to ask a question to someone sharing the stage with them this evening. Who they get to put a question to has been chosen at random by our team. I drew names out of a Viking cap. Now, we did give the candidates a heads up as to who they get to put a question to, but not who will be asking them a question. Think of it as a mayoral debate secret Santa.
Thank you.
Now, the questions can be on any topic. Brian Thiessen is up first. He gets to ask a question to Sonya Sharp.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. Councillor Sharp, you present yourself as a fiscal hawk, yet you were key architect of the $1 billion arena deal, which handed hundreds of millions of taxpayer money to billionaire owners and directly led to a 7.8% property tax hike. Now you're proposing to hire 500 police officers at $100 million to $150 million a year and that won't solve mental health and addiction crisis that's plaguing the streets. How can Calgarians trust you to manage their money when your signature achievement was a massive corporate subsidy that left them with the bill?
Thanks for the question, Brian. So first I'll just say to everybody in the room, if they want to pull up our donation, I would say, what's it called, like declaration? Oh, disclosure, thank you. I think there's only 2 people up here that don't have a deficit, Jyoti Gondek and I. I'm running my campaign like I run a business, and I can run the city like a business. We did not actually, can I answer my question, Mr. Davison? You're like, that's rude. So I would just say, it's a question. Can I answer my
Sonya
question?
Sharp
Sorry.
on the answer
Can I
now.
answer
Go
my
ahead.
question?
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Thiessen, I'll finish answering your question. So if I look at the disclosure statement, you can see that only 2 of us are actually running a surplus. The rest of them aren't. The other thing when it comes to the event center, no, your taxes did not go up. We used working capital, and we fought unanimously, Mr. Farkas. We got that event center with a $330 million from the province because the infrastructure costs to building the event center needed to be done, regardless if the event center was there or not. And so what I'll say to that is I am a fiscal hawk. I'm the only one in council that has time and time brought amendments forward to lower the tax rate. I have voted against it all, and I have surgically voted for things that I know that are important to Calgarians. So Brian, I hope I answered your question, but I guess everyone else will look at the way we've actually portrayed ourselves with track record on how we can move this forward.
I
And if
just
there's-
wish that you manage taxpayers' money as efficiently as you do your campaign. That's all I ask.
Thank you.
Over to Jeff Davison. Your question goes to Jeromy Farkas.
All right, Jeromy. Over the years, you've taken very different positions on key issues, from opposing city investments in innovation and economic diversification to later supporting them once public opinion shifted. You've stated that you have built your campaign on being principled and consistent, yet your public record tells a different story. You've flip-flopped on everything from city spending on the arts to downtown revitalization. Leadership means standing firm in your convictions, yet your track record shows repeated reversals on major city issues. How can Calgarians trust your judgment when your positions change like the political wind?
Leadership means doing better when you know better. When the facts change, as they have in the last 10 years on various issues, I'm willing to change my mind. I'm willing to listen to a good argument from my colleagues. I'm willing to listen to Calgarians. I don't say that I got everything right in my time as a city councillor, but I pushed hard. I worked hard for my constituents. I always fought for financial responsibility. I always fought for transparency. And I always picked up the phone when my constituents would bring a good argument to me. So yes, I've changed my mind on an issue or two. That doesn't mean that I'm a flip-flopper. It just means that I have a working brain. It means that I'm wanting to work hard for Calgarians and put the best foot forward on a plan for the city to actually deliver on the safety and affordability challenges that we're facing. But if you look through my career, you'll see consistency. I grew up as a kid from Dover. One of my first opportunities in community life was a community association volunteer. As a nonprofit leader, I've always advocated for a safer and affordable city, and I'm going to continue to do that as Calgary's next mayor and as somebody who won't resort to name calling.
All right, thank you very much. We go now to Jyoti Gondek. Your turn. Your question will go to Jeff Davison.
Mr. Davison, you and I both know how much collaboration and determination it took to get the downtown revitalization strategy built and approved, something that we knew was integral to our future. What would you say to the other candidates on this stage, some of whom have actively rejected this plan, and some who are looking to disinvest in downtown for 500 other reasons, about why that revitalization strategy must stay?
You know, thanks, Mayor, for the question. Downtown revitalization is absolutely key to how we freeze taxes and rebuild our city. Vibrancy matters in our city, transit matters in our city, and public safety matters in all of these. You know, I was happy to champion the downtown strategy and get a plan moving for Calgary, just as I was happy to champion the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. You know, I was recently at Calgary Economic Development's update, and you know, it was incredible to sit back and listen to a vision that we started almost 8 years ago that I was able to stand in front of council and announce and ask for support. And the one member up here, Jeromy Farkas, who continued to vote against those things, well, let's just talk a little bit about what that means today. $1.1 billion in tech investment in our downtown. Jeromy voted against that. $15 billion of investor certainty and security that is now transpiring in our city. Jeromy voted against all of those things. public safety plans that were key to making sure the downtown streets remain safe for people, in particular as we were trying to draw and attract businesses to the core. Jeromy voted against those measures. Sometimes it's about vision, sometimes it's about leadership, and often it's about both. And that's why I keep saying we need your support to build a safe and affordable city of opportunity for everyone.
Thanks very much. Sonya Sharp, you're next. You can put a question to Jyoti Gondek.
Thank you. So, as someone with parents who live with them, my dad's now in a home, my mom lives with me, seniors are worried and they're scared. Seniors are worried about affordability, staying in their homes, getting around the city, and getting around city safely. I know there's a lot of Calgarians are worried about their families, parents, kids, and their grandchildren. At the Kirby Forum, you mentioned partnering with grocery stores and restaurants for gift cards to help seniors. Why would you make a promise like that when you know that we fully cannot deliver on that as a city? I feel like that was a bit unrealistic and gave them a false sense of hope and trust in leadership.
Thanks very much for that question. I think that debate was probably the one where we were at our most human and actually talking to people about what's important to them. I appreciated your honesty at that forum, and it was an amazing opportunity to talk to seniors and share ideas about how we can support them. What I said at that forum is that we have a fair entry program. The fair entry program started off being able to offer low-income transit passes to people, and then we expanded into recreation passes, so people with low income could still access the amenities they needed. We grew that program to telecom as well. So now, through Rogers, if you qualify through fair entry, you can get a reduced rate on telecom. My point was, if we can partner with a major grocer who offers the same type of fair entry opportunity to seniors, perhaps we could do something about food security.
All right, thank you very much. Finally, Jeromy Farkas, your question is addressed to Brian Thiessen.
Thanks, and to Brian, I think you and I have common ground in that we see a mayor and council that have not acted enough on the important issues facing Calgarians over the last 4 years. My question would be, where do you think this council should have put more of their focus?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Jeromy. And thank you all for your patience. It is a debate, and so we get a little heated at times, but I enjoyed the back and forth. Listen, there's a few things, but I think there's a lack of leadership in council. And when council isn't giving clear direction and 15 people are moving in opposite directions, then administration fills the void. So we need a council that can build consensus, leadership that can build consensus, and a council that directs city admin. So leadership from the top. But I'd also say, we talk a lot about communication issues at the city. And I think, City Hall doesn't have a communication issue. I think it has a listening issue. I think people got really frustrated during the zoning debate because City Council wasn't listening to them, because City Admin wasn't listening to them. When I talk to businesses in Marda Loop and Bridgeland, and we have utilities digging up the roads 4 times, businesses don't feel listened to till they close their doors. That's why I'm saying we're going to listen to Calgarians, both in the housing debate, but also we're going to prioritize small businesses and listen to their needs and have a mandated dig once policy, so utilities only dig up our main roads once, and also treat them like the engines of our economy that they are. So that's how I'd do things differently and how I'd be critical of this council. Thank you, Jeromy.
All right, thank you all for your questions and your answers. It's now time to move on to our closing segment. We're going to have to be disciplined about time, and this will all be over soon. Now, we're going to wrap things up with one last question for each of our candidates. The final question is, tell us about an experience you've had on the campaign trail that has stayed with you and changed how you'll approach being the mayor of Calgary. 45 seconds each. Jeff Davison, you're up first.
It's amazing, actually. One of us is going to be the next mayor, but the greatest thing about being on this campaign is just all the stories and people you get to meet. It's been incredible, and it was a journey that we didn't get to experience in 2021. So getting to do this all over again and just get out there, I don't know that there was any one single experience I'll carry forward, because there's been so many stories of people that are just wanting to see our city do better. At the end of the day, people want a safe city. We believe in Calgary. Calgary's the greatest city on earth, and we're just all working to make it sure it continues to be that way. To me, I think, the overwhelming thing we keep hearing is Calgary's a city of opportunity. It's why all of us came here. And I think that is the one piece that would stick with me going forward. Make sure that we remain a safe and affordable place of opportunity.
All right, thanks very much, Jeff. Over to you, Jyoti Gondek.
So I've been both mayor and candidate for the last several months, and we were at a housing announcement where I made the comment that for those of us who woke up in a warm bed and had a private place to brush our teeth and get dressed for the day, we should be very grateful, because there's people in Calgary who don't have that. It was raining that day and all of us were complaining about the rain, and we forgot that there was people actually outside sleeping in that. A woman came up to me and said, "Thank you so much for supporting housing. I've been living in my car for 2 years. And if it wasn't for this program, I would not be able to live with dignity." And that just solidified why we do what we do. That's why I'm so committed to this city and making sure that everybody has access to living with dignity.
Sonya Sharp, again, the question, tell us an experience you've had on the campaign trail that has stayed with you and changed how you will approach being the mayor of Calgary.
You know, we sit up here and we talk about policy, and you know, we go back and forth a little bit. But I think the biggest thing that stuck with me is my dad coming to the campaign headquarters. Sorry, I promised I wouldn't cry. My parents moved here as immigrants, and he can't be here tonight, and he probably can't be there on Monday. But there's a post on social media, and he's my hero, and he is why I'm running for mayor. He's the reason I am fighting for a safe, affordable city and where you can trust City Hall. My dad always says to me, relationships move at the speed of trust. And I just want Calgary to trust City Hall again. So that is why I'm running for mayor. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Sonya. Okay, over to you, Jeromy Farkas.
For me, and I'm looking at it, Amanda and Darcy here, I'm looking at the amazing members of the team, being able to do what I wasn't able to 10 years ago. Be able to build the team that Calgary needs right now to be able to work across party lines to get stuff done. I want to reach out to the Calgarians, our neighbors today who are celebrating Diwali. From Dover to downtown, every single corner of the city, may you have a blessed time with you and your family. Thank you, Calgary. Thank you, Mayor Gondek, for your service. May we all find our way home.
All right, thanks very much, Jeromy. Now the question, tell us about an experience you've had on the campaign trail that'll stay with you and that'll change how you're going to be mayor. Brian Thiessen, you have 45 seconds.
Yeah, you know, I had the privilege of meeting John Rook and touring through Simon House in Bowness. And I think we'd all agree, pretty remarkable individual and pretty remarkable organization. But it was really inspiring in a number of ways. They have a story about Mr. Gladue, who was a patient there, went in for treatment after being sentencing from drug court. And John told me, you know, not only is it a great success story, he got remarried, they're making a movie about him, but we saved about $1.5 million on not incarcerating Mr. Gladue and rehabilitating him. But what I really was inspired by was how Simon House has become part of the neighborhood. You know, they volunteer when they have a road race. All of these individuals go out and man the road race, and they are part of the community. They shovel the walks, and I think that is the model for us to work together moving forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thiessen. All right, give it up for this group of candidates in front of us. That concludes the CBC Calgary 2025 mayoral debate. Our audience has been, oh my gosh, you've been well behaved. So rock the joint. Go again. Give it up for this crowd here. Now, Calgary's municipal election, of course, is happening this Monday, October 20th. We hope we've given you a thing or two to help move you one way or another. A lot of undecideds here. Advanced voting, of course, is now closed. So if you want to have your say, you've got to get out to a polling station on Monday. You can find more information at electionscalgary.ca. You can also head to cbc.ca/Calgary for a breakdown of the issues and the candidates running in each ward. You can tune in on election night to a 1-hour live radio special on CBC Radio 1. That'll be hosted by Paul Karchet from 8 to 9. And then at 11 p.m., Brian Labby will have the latest on CBC television. I will be with you on the Calgary Eyeopener tomorrow morning and then all next week to make sense of tonight, to make sense of the results and what they mean for our city. Thank you once again to our audience here at the Red and White Club. Of course, best of luck to all of the candidates. And if you're wondering, it's 5-1 Blue Jays at the moment. I'm Loren McGinnis. Thank you very much for joining us. Happy voting and good night.